Well, thank you everyone joining in today. My name is Jacqui O'Brien and I'm the Chief Persuader here at Persuaders. And today we're joined by Nick Hardin.
Hello.
He's our content strategist here at Persuaders and wonderful facilitator. And so it's always a pleasure to be side by side and sharing our nuggets of wisdom, hopefully. Today's session is all about pitching like a pro. And this is something we see day in, day out. And it's amazing to hear all of the feedback that we get, when we send our clients out into the world with an amazing, the know-how and an amazing pitch deck and, hearing all the good news that comes back in about we won and whatnot. So today is our opportunity to impart whatever we can, some of our formulas, some of our tips and tricks to help you win more business and to go out into the world confident and persuade more audiences to get buy-in. So we'll get into it.
Okay, so if you're a note-taking person, number one, be confident. Now, this might seem a little kind of style of a substance, but this is of vital importance. People only buy from and buy into people they know, like, and trust. So you have to be confident. Now, this isn't about kind of fake it till you make it. This is actually be it. If you are confident in the message you're delivering and you're confident in the product or the offer that you're throwing out there, it has to radiate from you. You have to genuinely believe in the thing so much that when you're talking about it, there is a sense of kind of almost reckless enthusiasm that kind of is radiated out from you that they pick up on. So if you haven't bought into the product, the service, the offering, they're not going to. So you must be confident. And you can kind of do whatever you need to be confident. For me, I'm currently wearing a t-shirt. I could be wearing a collared shirt. I feel more comfortable in a t-shirt. Why? Because I feel more comfortable. And when I feel more comfortable, I'm more confident. So there's a vibe and a style that happens when I am confident. Next one, positives and negatives. A lot of people, when they're pitching, just want to talk about the things that are positive. This thing is, it's the silver bullet. It's the thing that's going to change your life. It's going to, be the tipping point for your business and your company. But don't be afraid to also look at the negative. So when we think of motivational science in a really simple way, you've got the carrot and the stick. You can't just be all about carrot. Every now and then you have to talk about the stick. And that might mean something as kind of overt as saying, if you don't choose to do business with us, these bad things will happen. That's not a threat. That's more of a kind of, FOMO, fear of missing out. You'll lose your first mover advantage. You won't get the support and encouragement from us. Or you can talk about negatives in actually quite a positive way, paradoxically. For example, you can talk about all the positives of doing work with us and your future state. Then when you talk about the negatives are not the bad stuff that happens if you don't work with us. It's your ability to remove the bad stuff from your life. So for example, if you're selling a detox tea, you can talk about lose that blah feeling in 30 days. Or if you're talking about selling, say some type of software, you can say goodbye to bad months. That idea that people have cash flow issues and you're actually highlighting the fact there is some negatives about it and you say we can jettison and get them out of your world. So positive and negative. All right, next one is timing. First of all, you want to start on time. Now, the way we began is this idea of you're always going to kind of tread water for 2, 3, even 4 minutes before you actually start any pitch. Be prepared for that. Don't be thrown out by that. We weren't thinking we will start on 1 on the dot. We thought we'd be ready to go at 1, but people will kind of trickle in. So be very comfortable with the fact that you might have to hold a space or some dead air. Also, timing is about the way you speak and your approach. I'm speaking fairly quickly. That's because I want to kind of launch into this and give you as much value as humanly possible. If, however, I feel as though I'm speaking too quickly, or you might misperceive what I'm saying as I'm nervous or concerned, I'll just slow it down. And I'm completely comfortable with that. Last one is repetition. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's pretty much if you can come in to your meeting or your presentation or your pitch, and the idea of threes, the brain remembers things in threes. So if you're going to say what you're going to say, tell them what you're going to say, say what you say, and then tell them what you've just told them. the idea of, you know, like by the third time it's kind of burnt into their brains and their retinas, you know, hopefully if you've got some slides attached to them. And that idea is, you know, we're making it plainly obvious and, you know, in the front of their brains, in front of their minds, that this is the one key message I need to walk out of here and remember. So like being repetitious and putting things in that are blatantly, you know, like repetitive is not a bad thing. This is the mind will catch it and it will move on, and, you know, it will walk away, and 2 days later it will remember that one thing.
Right.
So yes.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a metric around that is if you gave a 45-minute presentation and somebody dutifully sat there, took notes, was really kind of engaged and interested, and then they walked out of that presentation and somebody bumped into them and said, oh, you just sat in on a presentation, what was it all about? They should be able to answer that. And they should be able to answer that quite easily. So, you know, Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech? Well, it's not called the I Have a Dream speech. It's called, like, you know, his memorial address. But everyone remembers it as the I Have a Dream speech. Why? Because he says, I have a dream, like 14 times. So that's our idea, is that you can purposefully have a look at the information you've delivered and then say, what's my, you know, main point? What's my main point? What's my main point? Do I drill that down to such a degree that when somebody walks out, you know, 1 minute after, 1 minute hour, 1 week after, they remember it was all about X. Yeah? Cool. All right. So next up. So if it wasn't clear, we're from a company called Persuaders. Persuaders have been around in a few kind of different versions over the last 11 years. I am a bit of a newbie to Persuaders. I was kind of joined the crew middle of last year. Jacqui is very much about visuals, kind of visual stylistics, kind of graphic design, user design, that kind of making, filtering content through the visual medium. I'm very much the words guy, former high school English teacher, all about words, kind of a wordsmith. I write speeches for C-level executives, etc. So I came on board to make sure that we had the visual and the verbal to make sure that our persuasion really kicked ass and took names. I like to write this down. This is the ultimate formula for a pitch. And I know what you're thinking before you write this down. You're like, this is outrageously simple. And that's half the point. We want it to be outrageously simple so you can remember it and so you can actually do it in real life. So it's got 3 parts: problem, solution, reward. And I'll just speak to the theory behind this quite quickly. What a lot of companies and individuals do is they go into a pitch scenario and they say, hi, I'm Nick from the Persuaders, and then they give their solution. That makes a lot of sense. But the problem is the audience needs time to warm up and they need time to be aware that actually you are solving their problem, not a generic problem. So think of it like this. Let's say I met you and I said, here is a vial of anti-venom. And you're like, oh, okay, thanks. That's a bit weird. But if I walked up to you and said, I don't know if you noticed this, but you were just bitten on the leg by a cobra. And you've got venom all around your system, and it's going to kill you and mean you're going to kind of bleed out of all of your orifices and die in terrible screaming pain in 6 minutes. Would you like this anti-venom? Now just have a think about that. The first one is they don't actually know context-wise why I'm giving them this vial of anti-venom. But the second one, they're like, oh my goodness, please give me that. So they're going to appreciate and accept and then use my solution much, much more. So the first thing we want to be talking about is their problem. Then we want to come with the solution. Now, some people will just say, well, it's a double hit, like, a 1-2 punch. It's problem solution. But you do need to go the third step, which is the reward, which is the idea that you have a problem, I have a solution, ... And if you put the solution into practice, this is what your life will look like moving forward. This is the future state.
What's that impact? What's the value that it brings to you and your world? What's the effect?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so you want them to be thinking, okay, if I took this advice or I bought this product, what would happen? What are the good things? What are the benefits? What would my real life actually look like? So that's our formula. Now, let me just move this out of the way. So when it comes to problem, and I'm just going to go through some of this relatively quickly, is a person's problem might be, and this will kind of connect with a lot of people, most people can't get their heads around their financial future.
Especially in these times.
Especially in these times. So if you were to say that, if I was to meet with a person and I said, you know, either we're at a barbecue or we're at some kind of networking event, and I said, what do you do? And they said, I'm in finance. My brain might go, yep, I know all about you, and then clock off and we talk about something more interesting. But
categorize
and categorize them in our brain and then kind of move on. But if I said, oh, what do you do? And they said, well, most people can't get their heads around their financial future. If they said that, I would agree with them. I'd agree with them. I'm like, yep, that's true. That is a true statement about life, and that's a true statement about me. And where are you going with this? You've identified a problem that the world has, and in fact, I have as well. What's the story now?
You're sitting on the edge of your seat. You're intrigued. You're building this sense of curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not hitting them with the punchline just yet.
I love that. Yeah, so it's almost like a joke. You don't start off with the punchline. You start off with the setup and then pause and deliver the punchline. So they start off from having a chat to a random person, networking event. I say, what do you do? And they say, well, you know how most people can't get their heads around their financial future. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. That's true for most people and true for me. And then that's the problem. They come in with the solution, which is, so we've created a financial map that puts all of your info on a weekly dashboard.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Which would be absolutely amazing. By the way, we don't sell this product, so it's not a sales pitch. But just have a look at that as a solution. What's the solution? They've set up a problem. Most people can't get their heads around their financial future. Then they've solved it by saying, well, we give you a financial map. So I'm like, problem, solution. But in their solution, they've kind of fleshed it out a bit more. They've made it concrete and kind of visceral, so I can see it in my head. So we've created a financial map that puts all your info on a weekly dashboard. I can see in my mind's eye, okay, it's on a dashboard. It takes all the information that I require. It's weekly. And so that sentence, even though it looks quite remarkably simple, actually touches on a whole bunch of stuff. They've really solved my problem. My information is timely, it's all encompassing, and it's in a visual, a dashboard that just kind of makes it simple for me. Now, if that's the way they left it, they'd be missing a trick. So what we really want them to do next is to say, all right, well, what happens if you use this solution? Well, giving you peace of mind about your finances. So let's just take a step back. So this particular phrase is threefold: problem, solution, reward. Problem, most people can't get their heads around their financial future. Solution, so we created a financial map that puts all your information on a weekly dashboard. And I, the audience, ask the question, so what? To which they reply, giving you peace of mind about your finances. Now, what I'd like you to do is just to press pause on us speaking and think about your business. Let's just jump down to the reward part. What is, and we won't kind of have this as a Q&A because I'm a little bit aware of time. We've got quite a few people on the line, but what is the reward? What is the beautiful future state that you would be giving your clients? Like, what is the benefit of them buying into your product? For this product, it is, well, we give you peace of mind about your finances. What might it be for yours?
And I think this is where you can really go into that aspirational mode of thinking and really frame up what the future state could be like. And it can be quite lofty or a little bit esoterical. We always try and get them thinking out of the here and now and kind of into that future state. So we would encourage you to be a bit bolder in this element. So
it's what this person is doing is they're a financial person. They've got a piece of software, and it simply allows you to kind of know where your money is and where it's going. So it's a fairly simple stuff, but they've connected it to a very, very lofty goal. And the lofty goal here is peace of mind. I mean, that's literally like at the top of the tree is that idea of like, peace of mind. Peace is a very kind of, people talk about wanting peace on earth or wanting peace of mind, wanting that kind of serenity now. It is a very lofty goal. So this person has moved very quickly from talk about finances, which exist on the left-hand side of the brain and on a Excel spreadsheet, to talk about peace, peace of mind, tranquility, serenity. I know where my money is coming in, where it's going. I feel a sense of kind of calm about it, because that's what you're actually selling. You're not selling software, you're selling peace of mind. That's far more attractive than simply selling software.
Nice. It's transcending.
It does, it transcends. So let's walk and talk you through what we do here at Persuaders. So we're going to go again with that model of problem, solution, reward. So our problem is this. Someone says, oh, you work at Persuaders, what's the story there? So I would start by saying, well, most businesses struggle to communicate well. You notice that's just a statement. It's very simple. It's kind of all-encompassing. I'm not talking about email or speeches or pitches or tenders. I'm just talking about communication. And I've just made a statement. Most businesses struggle to communicate well. Most people, 99%, would say, yep, that's true.
Obvious, yeah.
We have a process that distills, designs, and delivers their messages. So we've got a problem, and then we've got our solution. So we have a process. Now, people love leaders with a plan, and they love leaders who have kind of, this is what we're doing. I've got a process, I've got a system, I've got a formula, I've got a 3-step way of doing this.
It works.
It works. This is what we do. Yeah. So just a quick question for you. Cast your mind back to 2016. Yeah. What was Donald Trump's plan for America? What was his plan if he got elected? And if I could hear you guys speaking back to me, you would say something like, make America great again, or build the wall. That was the plan. Yeah. What was Hillary's plan? I would suggest, if you're like most of the people I've been speaking to over the last month, they have no idea what her plan was, or even what her logo was, or even kind of what her message was. Now, I'm not actually talking politics, so settle down. What I'm saying is Donald Trump had a very clear process, which was build the wall, make America great again. Hillary Clinton didn't.
It's fuzzy.
Technically, if you're wondering, it was I'm with her, but it wasn't kind of a plan or a process that most people could get their head around.
It's like a slogan.
Yeah, it's like a slogan. The reason I say that is because I don't want you to be thinking, okay, I need to flesh out what our process is in such vivid detail that everyone gets it. Did Donald Trump do that? No. Are we doing that? No. Have a look at the slide. We have a process that distills, designs, and delivers their messages. So we talk about what we do, but we don't give you any detail because it's a time and place.
How.
Yeah, it's not about the how.
It's, I'm in a sticky spot in A and I need to get to B. And so the how is irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
Why do I care?
Yeah. So you bought into the idea that most businesses struggle to communicate well. You're like, yep, that's me. That's us. When people kind of ask me what I do at a networking event, I'm not quite sure what to say. When we're asked to kind of pitch, I'm not quite sure how I write a bio or talk about, what our company does in a really simple way. Yeah, that's a problem. And then you have us coming in to say, yeah, you do have a problem, but don't worry, we have a process. And this process distills, designs, and delivers your messages. But we still need to do our 3rd step, which of course is the reward. What's the future state? The reward is so that they are persuasive and move people to action. So we're not actually here just to make sure that you've got messages that are distilled, well-designed, and well-delivered. That's nice, but so? Because your audience always reserves the right to say the question, so what? So what we're saying is we're filling that question in before they've even asked it. We're saying, well, if you do have a well-distilled, well-designed, and well-delivered message, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be persuasive and move people to action, which people find very attractive. So that's a bit of an example. So that's kind of 2 examples, one with like financial, software, and one with us. The question from Nikki was, can you use this process for a speaker bio? 100%, 100%, absolutely. I mean, let me give you an example in my life. Frequently, I'm asked to speak about innovation. So if I was to use this formula like so, I might say, many businesses struggle with innovation and creativity. And all these companies are like, yeah, absolutely. You say, our guest speaker, Nick Hardin, has a process that allows you to have quality ideas and inspire people and processes to be more innovative. And everyone's like, okay, I struggle with being more innovative. He's got a process that means, the people and our organization is more innovative. Fantastic. Now, the last one is, what does that mean? So what am I going to get by listening to this person who's giving a keynote? Well, I'm going to get down to my reward and say, so you will produce more ideas, better ideas, and, I don't know, I'm kind of making this up as I go.
Change the world.
Yeah, change the world. Well, you could talk about, you could say, so you can make innovation business as usual for your company and kick a dent in the universe. That's a tiny bit kind of, big picture esoteric, but you can definitely use this technique of saying, yeah, you've got a problem, you're not innovative. We have a solution. We've got a 5-step process to be innovative. And the last one is you can produce better ideas, more ideas, and ensure that everyone in your organization is at their most innovative and creative, or whatever it ends up looking like. So now we move to slides, and I might throw over to Jacqui because Jacqui is the slide queen. So the question is, when it comes to delivering a pitch, do you use slides? Do you not? When might you use them? When might you not use them? And kind of what are some of the rules around using slides?
Yeah, it is a good question. And I think it comes down to a few variables. And so, we like to think about how many touch points or how far along on this journey are you? Have you met with this team or this person before? Has it been casual coffee catch-ups? How far along are we? Are we at a point where we do, get to sit in a boardroom together? We can plug in our laptop, see all our slides up in full glory. Are we at we've pitched and we're going to send a leave behind sort of deck, with a bit more detail in there. So I think, once you've got like the informal kind of chats and you're kind of grooming up to a point where you do get, to sit around a bit of a round table and kind of, put your ideas into their heads and try to sort of hook them in, get their buy-in, I think it's very appropriate to have a slide deck. Now, how long should the slide deck be? I think if we think about time, that you might be invited to come in and oh, sorry, just showing up.
Why don't you play with that for 1 second?
Yeah.
And have a think about it. So I did a pitch almost kind of like accidentally this morning. So I went to my local coffee place. I'm at 11 York Street, Wynyard, which is in Sydney, New South Wales. And I go to a coffee place just kind of around the corner. And in there, I noticed a guy who I've done some work with about like 5 years ago. And kind of, he had to sign up to the whole, you're in a public space, sign up, give us your name, etc. And I kind of made a joke about, use your right name. And then we had a laugh, and then he invited me over, we had a cup of coffee together. So naturally within that space, he said, what have you been up to? And I spoke about what I've been up to, of which it's kind of just very intuitive and normal for me to say, well, I'm working for a company called Persuaders. We help, entrepreneurs, executives, organizations, and C-suite, articulate their message in a compelling way. And he's like, interesting. So do you do pitches? I'm like, yeah, we're doing a pitch at the moment for ANZ Private Bank, and we did some last week for New South Wales Treasury. He's like, we should do some work. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, we should. And then you know what we did? I didn't crack out my slide deck because that wasn't the time nor the place. It was an informal chat, intentional. It was moving forward, but it was informal. It was relaxed, and that wasn't the time or the place. So I made a decision in that moment to not kind of say, well, I want to inform you better about what we do and who we are. I decided, no, let's leave on a high. This is a good moment. And then we can worry about that more formal stuff a little bit later. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. So there's a time and a place, but you will come to a point, hopefully, where slides, will become a very good, useful persuasion tool to have in your back pocket. Sometimes you might whip them out on your phone. you know, if it's just like a one-to-one, but obviously if you can get it up in its full glory, up on a sort of a boardroom presentation screen, then that's obviously the right way to go. I'll just bring it back up. Sorry. Let me just share that screen again. Just had a little glitch. One moment.
So one of the slides we're going to show you in a second is kind of talking about that idea of, is the thing that persuades giving more information? And I'd actually suggest that you need to make some decisions about how much information you're going to give at what time. So for example, in that moment there, it was, let's say that's the beginning of your 7 touch points. You know, that idea of kind of, we have 7 touch points before a person actually kind of buys into us. So if you guys can see that, I had got to the point where I'd given enough information about what Persuaders does, and the person I was speaking to had their confusion reduced enough for us to kind of meet in the middle. Now, winning the audience over wasn't getting him to sign up to buy one of our, you know, $40,000 pitch decks. It was simply to get his phone number and to say, hey, can you send me some information? Because that's all I was looking for.
It's the micro commitments, you know, like what's the next little step that you kind of want to build into your sales process, that they're okay and willing to kind of, you know, take on another little, yeah, sure, I'll come and have a coffee with you, or yeah. And that might be appropriate then to pull out a slide deck.
Yeah, and they did ask to see like the fuller slide deck, but I'm not actually going to give it to them unless I get to kind of walk and talk them through it in person. So actually giving them the right information at the right time is vital. Now, one of the reasons why people love slides is because they can make something esoteric or conceptual visual. So that's super important if you're in kind of finance or in business and you're talking about numbers. So it can make them stick because they have kind of context and meaning. So here's an example of that. So, you know, talking about size, $2, $20, you can demonstrate that quite easily. And here's one of my favorites. Talking about a thing, comparing it to something so people just go, oh, I get it. So I'm not talking about, you know, 80,000 users, because people find it hard to conceptualize the concept of 80,000. But if I say 80,000 users, that's roughly one ANZ stadium. So if you've been to the football, to the ANZ stadium, if it was completely full, that's how many customers we currently have. Bang.
Raving fans.
Yeah, raving fans. Yeah, so that's an opportunity for people to go, yep, I get it. So that conceptualizing in a visual way, that's super useful. Now.
So Q&A, we've popped this in. It's not an opportunity now for us to dive into any of your questions, but of course, if you want to chat any, we can kind of answer them as we go through. But this is the most important part of your pitch. Any time that you can hand back the microphone over to anyone else in the room, they're going to have like quite nuanced, you know, like they're going to have their own set of questions, and maybe there's a couple of people in the room. And so we need to open up the floor back to them. And so one really cool way of actually doing that, and what we think is actually the best way to pitch, is say if you've got an hour-long meeting, we want you to deliver a short, sharp and slick, like shiny kind of pitch within 15 minutes. 20 minutes max. We don't want to be overloading them with too much information.
So what people would often do if they were given an hour to pitch something is they'd often speak for, say, 50 minutes and then do Q&A for 10 minutes at the end.
Or maybe 5 minutes, or, you know, like whatever. And by then, you know, people are asleep and they're like, oh, yeah, I feel like you've just flooded me with information. I don't even have my thoughts together yet. I'm bored. Like, let me out of this meeting. I'd rather have 5 minutes to myself. So what can happen is you've kind of got to the end of your wordy, lengthy, you know, like lofty kind of pitch, and then you're kind of left standing and no one has any questions, which is a horrible place to be in, because, you know, you can't sound out what's their emotions, what they're thinking in the room. So we really encourage, you know, the first third should be used to be, you know, selling a really concrete, intriguing sort of high-end pitch.
Yeah.
and open it up to the floor. The Q&A should be for the rest of the 40 minutes.
Now that doesn't mean that, like, let's say you think, well, that's great and all, but when I am given an hour, I do have 50 minutes of information to go through. This is a really complex data I need to go through. What we'd say is that you'll chunk it down to say 15, 20 minutes, and you get through it in a way that sets the Q&A session up to be really fruitful. You don't you don't get to it and say, okay, and any questions? And if they have questions, great. If they don't, you're screwed. No, this is you saying, I'm going to look at all my data. I'm going to strip mine it for the most important. I'm going to front load the most important stuff, so I get to talk about, our big picture. If you want an example, think of Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet actually has a prologue, and in the prologue, which is only like 16 lines long, it tells you the entire story. So they tell you the entire story, then they say, now we're going to go into detail for 2 hours, and then they get amongst it. It's the same concept. So you go for your 15 minutes and you tell the whole story, just kind of like dot points. Yeah. Then you say Q&A. If they don't launch in and ask questions, what you do is you think of it like FAQs on a website. You've thought about their frequently asked questions. So then you say, well, at this stage, people often ask questions about the team, and then you bring up slides about the team, your org chart, who's who in the zoo, what their different roles are. And then you say, you go through that. That should stimulate some questions. Again, nightmare scenario. If it doesn't, you then say, and another question that's commonly asked at this stage is, tell us more about the technology. So, and then you click open, some more data about the technology and walk and talk them through that.
Or this is where you put your demo video in. Yeah, you've got tables and charts and sort of pricing tables, or detailed process plans, diagrams. Shove it in the back end.
Yeah,
that's the time and the place to reveal your, very in-depth information and data.
Which is it's kind of a clever way of making sure you commandeer the time to put on the table exactly what you want to put on the table for the first 15 minutes. And then you open it up to them, because you might find they say, listen, they might want to drill down on a very specific particular thing for a stack of time. And if they do that, it's like, wonderful. You now have an opportunity to demonstrate or show off your knowledge and expertise and talent. You are pitching. That is part of the pitch. I mean, the pitch is just to get them to know, like, and trust you and to demonstrate your value. You might get to the end of that and it's like, okay, time's against us, so we need to pull up stumps. You say, great, I've got to leave behind. I'll send the pitch to everyone, or perhaps you PDF it. And then you say, okay, we didn't have a chance to kind of talk about X, Y, and Z, but they're details that you guys can kind of just, have a read through. So what you've actually prioritized is the information that you wanted to put on the table, and then they have prioritized the information they wanted to get out of your skull.
Yeah. And so that's really working into what the audience needs and wants. I do have an example of what that looks like. And I just wanted to show you the stark difference between what we call the front end of the pitch system and sort of the back end of the pitch system. So the front end is meant to be like really short, sharp, shiny and delicious.
Simple.
Really simple and very dynamic. So we build a lot of animations and, transitions into this, and it's sort of meant to go at a good pace, a good canter. And, like you open it up to the Q&A, and the back end of your presentation or pitch can house a lot more information, as you can kind of see on the right. And this is where, we can use infographics and visuals and demos. And we have on the left-hand side of that right screen, you'll see a bit of a navigation system. So this is an interactive appendix, we like to call it. And you can click through and reveal the information in a really non-linear, dynamic fashion. So if someone jumps to the end and they're kind of like, what about implementation? He might be the CTO, or he might be the person with the analytical hat on. So you can take the lead and kind of jump down and click through, and it just gives you much better control about what information you're revealing when. Absolutely.
And speaking of information, if you just have a look at that particular slide, it's pretty much exactly kind of what's happening with the left and the right hand side of the brain. It's a little bit flipped, but basically what we have on the front end is the right side of the brain. It's emotion and simplicity. It's like I get it in one fell swoop. It's like, oh, I get it. You're about helping us navigate the future simply, seamlessly, and clearly. Done. Got it. I buy in. Then you go to the left-hand side of the brain, which is more analytical, detail-orientated, which is you go into more detail so that you build trust and you demonstrate value, but you also scoop up the cynics and the skeptics in the audience who are saying, listen, you kind of skated over at the beginning how you make it seamless. Like, come on, like you can promise anything, but what does that look like? And you go, well, I'm glad you asked. It looks like this. So this allows you to have a double bite of the cherry. You first prioritize simplicity, clarity, and emotion. Then you plug in the gaps by saying, yes, we have the detail and the expertise.
And so I think a lot of this comes back to actually really knowing your audience. Who are you there to pitch to or to present to? And I would argue that anytime you're presenting anything, whether it's reports or a finding or a strategy, you are always pitching. Like we joke about this all the time, but like any opportunity, even if it's a lifelong client of yours that's been with you for 8 or 10 years, every time you are face to face with them or presenting back any findings, you are pitching, because at any time they could leave. And
so what does it mean to really know your audience? I mean, at its most basic level, it's just kind of like demographics. Like, who are they? Average audience member that you speak to, male, SME owner, 46, lives in kind of Bondi and kind of runs an SME which does, $2 to $7 million per year. That's great. That demographics is super useful, and do it. But your second step is to go deeper, and that's into your psychographics. That's when you're actually saying kind of what style of person are they? What's their lifestyle? How do they think? How do they approach the world? So I spent a little bit of time in Turkey a couple of years ago, and in Turkey they speak about when they do business, you have 3 glasses of apple tea. So the first glass is you have the first glass, and then these small ones, and you just talk about the weather. The second glass, you talk about your family, and the third glass, you then talk about business. So if you just kind of go in there and you don't know your audience, in this case, from a cultural point of view, you'd have like the first one, oh, thanks for the cup of apple tea, slam it down, and then launch into business. And you would offend everyone and you would not get the business. So there are cultural things to take into account. There are other things to take into account. Like, the more you think about your audience, the better you're going to be. If they're visual people, if they respond incredibly well to visual things as opposed to auditory things, find that information out. You can find that information out to see what pitches have been successful. Give their EA a call. Like, there's no EA in the world who wouldn't love to kind of, be asked a question by a person who comes in to pitch. Give them a call and say, hey, listen, I've got a pitch with your boss in a couple of days' time. I don't want to kind of bore them, and I want to make sure it kind of really lands. I know you can't give me any insider knowledge, but...
Oh, he likes donuts. I'm bringing a tray of donuts in.
Yeah, but how can I approach this? Does he or she, do they like a leave behind? Do they like to be kind of given something? Do they like kind of flip charts or posters? And the EA might say, well, as it happens, he loves to have something in his hand. So he loves very quite kinesthetic and tactile. So if you give him a leave behind at the beginning, then he'll kind of doodle on that. And then, because I've seen a couple of times when I go in to his office after he's heard a pitch, that he kind of draws all over it and annotates it. So therefore, if I were you, I would have a leave behind. And that allows you to kind of pitch appropriately for them. So knowing your audience is vital.
So, I know we sort of touched on before about like the, what is a pitch system, and we've sort of like alluded to, the front end of the pitch is what you deliver on the day.
Just before you launch, and sorry to interrupt, I wanted to start this by saying, in many ways, pitches aren't that difficult. It's really just problem, solution, reward. That's it. It's not rocket science. And sometimes people need to be reminded that it's not difficult. You are the expert. You know all about it. You're passionate about it. So just talk about problem first, then solution, then reward. However, we're just going to speak for a little bit about how we can kick it up a notch, how we can make it a little more advanced, a little more sophisticated. So this is the system that we use that is kind of infused with the idea of problem, solution, reward, but it's a little more complicated.
And so, yes. So thinking about how many touch points you might have with a potential prospect. You know, maybe there are a few, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 juicy, beautiful slides that you could send them their way, land in their inbox, and hopefully as a teaser, you know, the idea is to kind of, get them to like come and meet with you. Great. So if you've got something really visual and high level, we're building the intrigue. We're whetting the appetite.
Would you do that? Like, so let's say I have a pitch with a company on Thursday. Would you send them a teaser if you already have a pitch?
Potentially for others that may not have spoken with you, that you may not have had a chance to kind of, you know, deliver your elevator pitch or your spiel. So it's kind of for the benefit of the others to sort of say, yeah, oh, I'm definitely coming to this meeting. Wow, I'm in. Like, and or if it's a cold email, like, you know, you're trying to reach out and you're trying to sell your wares into, you know, another sort of organization, this is something really great to kind of send. It is quite dynamic. It can be a few slides that are quite highly animated. You can save it out as a video even and send it along and embed it into an email. But basically those 5 or 6 slides might live in your front end of your pitch. And then the front end of your pitch might have about, you know, if we're thinking 15 to 20 minutes, that might have anywhere from like 10 to 15 slides, and that's your high level pitch. Then, you know, beyond the Q&A, the appendix with all of the detailed slides, that sort of lives in the back end of the pitch. And also that doubles up as your leave behind material. So anyone that couldn't attend the day, you know, great, I'm going to PDF the whole pitch. We have an interactive menu. They can just click through into the back end of the pitch and reveal the information that they just really want to get to the bottom of. And then the 4th step along the process is hopefully they invite you to send, you know, your cost or your proposal over to them. And so we want the whole sort of journey to feel cohesive and consistent. And so we feel all of your sort of pitching and proposal materials are kind of like, you know, hodgepodged and Frankensteined, and they don't look like your brand. You know, we really want you to start thinking about how to bring it all together and create that flow and, you know, whatnot. So, yeah.
And you would create that by if we just have a look at that, you notice that on the left and the right, it's the same font, the same style, the same colors. I mean, you know, one is using a lot more green, but in general, you can see how those are rather similar. So if we wanted, if someone said, you know, either, you know, the day before or the day after the pitch, oh, listen, you know, my co-worker wasn't able to make it. Can you send something through? We might think, well, actually, yeah, you know what we're going to do for you? We're just going to send you through the front end, just so that person gets kind of like the big picture. But the big picture is looking in a way which is seamlessly connected to the broader picture. Yeah.
And so we kind of covered this before, you know, like flip the time.
Yeah. That's cool.
And this is kind of where, you know, perhaps that idea of mastering your pitch. So if you might not be 100% confident going in, you know, you might have a really good slide deck, but then you just kind of want to think, you know, you want to sort of see around your blind spots. You know, what can we offer?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
and speaking of which, we are aware of times. We're going to pull up stumps because we're going to
like 2 minutes.
Yep, in 2 minutes time. So we're aware of that. So we'll pull up stumps in a moment. But what we do for companies that we have written their pitch or helped them kind of, you know, co-create their pitch is we always build into it an education plan. And the education is not necessarily about the information because they're the subject matter experts. And nor is it about kind of great communication because often they're the top of the tree and they're really good communicators. It's just about specifically what does a pitch look like and how do you need to kind of come across. So the last time we did one of these for a large freight forwarding supply chain company in Melbourne, we flew down there the day before they flew out to America to do the pitch, and just kind of I helped the CEO walk and talk me through what he was going to say. And then in the process of doing that, I was able to audit the pitch, you know, talk about the pros and cons, give kind of real-time feedback, and then give him exemplars and examples of how I would give it. And it's not done in such a way that is it's over the top or kind of Hollywood-esque. Like it's more taking that person and turning them up to 11.
Yeah, amplifying them.
Yeah, amplifying them, not making them into a mini Nick or a mini Tony Robbins. That's not the point.
And so I think beyond today, we were, you know, thinking it would be really awesome for you guys to kind of, you know, perhaps get a little taste of, what we can do for anyone who's stuck in that pitch kind of mode and, needs to put together a really comprehensive yet simplified proposal or pitch, was to kind of come in and get a pitch audit. So that's where Nick would, survey and watch and listen to how the pitch was being delivered.
Yeah.
In a bit of a private room, and we'd be able to sort of provide real-time feedback, from the design point of view and sort of, the spoken point of view and confidence levels. And then you'd be walking away with, the tips and the tricks and all of that sort of advice, so you can really go out there and pitch and be persuasive.
Yeah, absolutely. So because you've gone through the process of kind of signing up to this and giving us your email, et cetera, we'll leave the ball in your court. If you would like us to do a pitch audit, we'd love to. That'd be great. As I said before, we're in Sydney, but if you are out of Sydney, we can perhaps do some stuff via Zoom and Skype. That's very doable. But if you are in Sydney, we would love if you want to self-select and kind of send us another email and just say, hey, listen, I'd like to go through this. What's the story? Because in a nutshell, we'll just bring you into 11 York Street. I'll put you up into a room like the one we're currently in now. I'll get you to pitch to me. I'll do an audit of it and then give you real-time feedback and then kind of a little bit of coaching and probably talk about the parts that are great and possibly some of the parts that need a little bit of work. And then Jacqui can kind of pop in, have a look at it from a visual point of view and do the same type of thing. So it's probably going to take place within an hour, but it's the type of thing that even if you decided at the end of it, you didn't want us to personally do some work with you, you'd get some great value out of it regardless. So if you'd like to check that out, opt in, send us an email and say, hey, listen, I'd like that free audit, and then we'll get the ball rolling. So you do the farewell.
Oh, yes. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate, your ears and your eyeballs today, and kind of, any feedback we'd love to hear. And we want you to go out there and, win more business, and it's what keeps the world turning. And thanks for joining in.
Absolutely. And just remember, last things, I do want you to be able to kind of walk out of this, and if someone stops you in the street and says, what's it all about? If you just remember one thing, it's this. It's a 3-step process. Problem, solution, reward. You do that, then you'll be absolutely gobsmacked by how engaged your audience is in the moment and how much more business you get. Because quite frankly, people are not doing that. So that's us. That's your time. Hope this was lunching and learning for you, and touch base if you want that free audit.
See you next time.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.